Our next cervical soft tissue technique is a technique that is going to incorporate a forward bending motion combined with side bending, sometimes known as a forearm fulcrum. We will show you this in a unilateral style and then with a bilateral style, more for flexion. The first technique, what we're going to do is slide our hand under the patient's neck in such a way that my hand gets towards her shoulder and my elbow is up towards her head. The wrist side of the arm is not as wide as my upper forearm, and therefore I can take her head and just roll it slowly to the high side. Now, depending on the patient's problem, I can take her head and maneuver it such that the forearm gets under the area that seems to bother her the most, and then I can just slowly roll it over to that side. And if I want to, I can hold it a little bit at a tense position. Now, in this case, our patient doesn't have a bad cervical problem, so she's showing and exhibiting a pretty good cervical motion, which your patient wouldn't have. Now, the other thing you can do with this technique, if you feel that you're not getting enough tension into it and your elbow is not high enough, you can lift your elbow up like this and move it a little bit this way. Or you can take and I'm going to switch hands so you can see this next modification. Rather than having the elbow like this and then rolling it up, if you don't find that the elbow is high enough, I can take my hand on this side and now bring it to the high side, even higher side like so, and she'll just drape the neck over that. You try to do it on the part of the forearm that has the most musculature, so she's just not rolling over the radius and ulnar bony portion of your forearm. Also be careful not rolling someone's head and neck over a wristwatch, like you can see, because that could bother it. Now, the bilateral fulcrum is a variation of this where you can just take your hands and put them either flat on the table or just get right up on the shoulders and just sort of crisscross under the patient's head and neck. And now you see that the patient is instantly in a flexion position. And then what we're going to try to do, slowly move in to her flexion barrier, which might be caused by tight trapezius muscle, tight levator scapula muscles, etc. And I'm going to try to find that barrier and then just slowly lift my arms up and just take her right into that barrier just a little bit, not overstretching her, and doing it in a very slow, rhythmic fashion. Or I can do it in a very constant fashion like this. But one, I can have the patient take a nice deep breath and let it out. And she lets it out, see if that loosens it up a little bit. And I can combine this with other techniques that we're doing in other clips, such as muscle energy. I can ask my patient to push her head back into my forearms a little bit. Just gently push backwards with your head. And she's just pushing gently back. You can see it's not too strenuous. Hold that for 3 to 5 seconds. Relax, let your head go, and then see if there's a little bit increased barrier to that. So that's the single, unilateral, and bilateral fulcrum techniques for flexion and side bending with flexion.